NC Pork. Good for the plate, great for the state. The variation in how this is going to be managed doesn't only, as you say, differ by conference, but it also differs by sport. Explain that.
Yeah, let me throw out some numbers to you for the four most prominent sports at most schools: football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. Those four sports, by the way, got a lot of scrutiny in the House settlement. There was even a percentage division when you wonder, how the money was divided for that back pay, the 2.78 billion that essentially is compensating former athletes. I guess some are still playing, but those who were athletes from 2016 to 2014, how were they compensated? What was the math? Well, the judge decided that the math should reflect the sports that create the revenue, and the money, because it's designed in part to compensate you for your name, image, likeness that appeared on TV. For example, football players were getting 75% of that money. Men's basketball, 15%. And it was women's basketball, roughly 5, baseball, roughly 5. So again, individual athletes, depending on your sport, depending on your prominence on your own team and the prominence of your school and your program, could be as low as a $300 payout, could be as high as 1.8 million was the highest I saw anybody getting. So it's going to vary widely, but that's why we're focusing on these four sports, because that's what the judge focused on in the House settlement. When it comes to that $20+ million maximum in revenue sharing money, it is again important to remember that each school at its own discretion can decide the amount it wants to spend on what sports it wants to spend on. But we already know that football and men's basketball, just like they got the most in back pay by a lot, are going to get the overwhelming majority of this new revenue sharing money, mainly because, again, they're the two sports at almost all schools that create the big revenue, that revenue which helps sustain all the other sports on campus. Keep feeding the golden geese, as they say. At Clemson, for example, where Dabo Swinney's football program has become one of the greatest cash cows in modern college sports history, with a profit of almost $20 million, a profit of almost $20 million just in the 2024 fiscal year, the Tigers athletic director, Graham Neff, already has announced that he plans to fully fund every sport all the way to the new roster caps. Dude, that will require going from 275 total athletic scholarships on campus, looking backward at Clemson University, to 425 total athletic scholarships. That commitment alone, again, this is separate from the 20+ million in revenue sharing. The new scholarship commitment at Clemson alone, 150 new full athletic scholarships, that's going to require $6 million or so in new revenue. Because of the details of the House settlement, and this can make your head hurt, so I won't get into the nitty gritty, but the $6 million increase, if you choose at any school to increase your athletic scholarship money by $2.5 million or more, it actually reduces the revenue sharing money available by that 2.5 million. So because Clemson is raising its athletic scholarship investment by 6 million, 2.5 million is going to come off what we think is that 20.5 million number. Again, it could end up being slightly higher that we've been throwing around. Other schools that increase their athletic scholarship commitments by 2.5 million or more are going to face the same consequence, just to be clear. So you have 18 million to throw around in this scenario. At Clemson, the 18 million is expected to be distributed this way: 14 million plus to football, 3 million maybe to men's basketball, and the remaining 1 million mostly to baseball and women's basketball. That does not leave much for any of the other sports on campus. One other quick example, the athletic director at Texas Tech of the Big 12 has publicly stated that he plans to direct about 15 million of his available revenue sharing cash to football. 15 million out of the 20 plus million to football, 3 or 4 million to men's basketball, and less than 500,000 each to some other sports. That is expected to be a very common approach across the power conference schools. Again, there's going to be variations. You can make individual decisions on your individual campus with its unique focuses and favorite sports or most powerful sports or higher revenue producing sports. One quick PS on that. The Big East, where the schools do not play top level football, they do have smaller overall budgets because they don't have the huge football money coming in, but they are expected to invest in men's basketball at an even higher value than the other powerful basketball conferences in men's basketball. So it's interesting in the Big East, the lack of football reduces your revenue, but the lack of football means you're not taking a $15 million chunk out of the 20 plus million that you're spreading around to all your sports on campus. So there actually could be a little bit of a competitive advantage, to the St. John's, Villanovas, Marquettes of the world that don't have, again, the bonus of football and the lucrative nature that it can be, but also the heavy expense of football and that massive revenue sharing investment that almost all these schools are going to do. We'll see how that shakes out. We'll follow it here at the North Carolina Sports Network, but that's just one more fascinating aspect of this brand new world that we're all trying to understand a little bit better. I am a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she does not impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com.
You mentioned Texas Tech and what they're doing and how they're distributing their money. Remember, they have Najari Kennedy, the softball pitcher, who was the first to sign a $1 million NIL deal. She signed a second seven-figure NIL deal to return to the Red Raiders for 2026. Her first deal was a one-year, $1,050,024 contract. That was broken down like this: $1 million for her, $50,000 for living expenses. That's a hell of a dorm room. And $24 for her jersey number. The other thing that you mentioned, talking about FCS football, I was an FCS AD. Whenever I took over at Towson, we had gone 2-9 and 1-10 in the most recent seasons. Okay, I got there in the middle of the 1-10 season. Second year head coach, we made some changes in the offseason. We then won back-to-back CAA championships, and then in year 3 played for the national championship. In FCS football, you get 63 scholarships. We were spending about $7 million total on football. There's no way we came close to even making 1/3 of that back in collective revenues and even the tuition that came in from the scholarship players who didn't get full scholarships. They were getting partial, so there was still some revenue coming in. When I look at the FCS schools in the state of North Carolina, Gardner-Webb, Western Carolina, Campbell, Elon, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, and then non-scholarship FCS, Davidson, there is no way that any logical person could justify the impact of those programs back on those schools to put forth this money if you're going to fully fund 63 scholarships. Davidson seems like the smartest school out there because they play in the Pioneer League, which is Division I AA non-scholarship football, and they play Drake, San Diego, they play Guilford Methodist, they play a smaller, they still have football on campus, but they're not just dumping money into this sport. It is crazy. And while football and men's basketball, as you say, David, are the revenue generators and will command most of these revenue sharing dollars, there's no surprise in that. But how will Olympic sports, baseball, softball, track and field, swimming, lacrosse, how will those sports be affected? Are some schools going to cut programs and others maybe reclassify those? I mean, we're entering a world where being a student athlete at a Power Five school may no longer mean what it used to, especially if you're not on the gridiron or the basketball court.
It's a fascinating question, and I don't think we have all the answers yet. I think we can predict a lot of things. Some schools, to save money, are going to reduce some sports from what we call varsity status, where you are funding them with scholarships, athletic scholarships, to club status. I don't think that's going to happen right away. And as you know, and I've seen at a dozen plus schools, when you start those conversations, a lot of alumni, especially former players in the sports that you're planning to either cut or, reduce to club level, things get emotional. Sometimes people raise a lot of money to save a sport. We've even seen that at one of the most prominent athletic departments in the entire country. I mean, Stanford is in many ways the trend center in college athletics. And years ago, they were about to cut a lot of sports, and they backed off of that original plan, in part because many of their alumni and former athletes raised a whole lot of money to save those sports. But one thing we can predict too, beyond even this context, Mike, and you would know the details of that FCS world you were describing far better than I would. As a fan, just the people who are watching us today, who are helping us, get closer and closer to 35,000 YouTube subscriptions, which, by the way, is in the top 2% in the entire world of YouTube channels. We have reached the top 2%. We're not quite Taylor Swift level top 0.1%, but we are now in the top 2%, and we thank everybody for that. Our viewers, our readers, our listeners, what is coming your way. There is going to be something, they might use different language, but there's going to be something called a talent fee when you either renew your season tickets or buy single game tickets. So, all those people who are tired of the add-on fees from their ticket agency, get used to the idea, seriously. The schools are going to say, hey, if you want us to compete in this new world, you need to buck up. Now, that can be in the form of the big dollar donations to your booster club, but they're going to raise the thresholds of what entitles you to various benefits in all the booster clubs. You're going to see a talent fee in your ticket price or your season ticket price. You are going to see more expensive concessions. I am not exaggerating. What do you have to do in this new world? Well, you have to cut expenses. And as you mentioned, one school we follow closely is cutting 40 people from their athletic department payroll, 40 plus people. You either have to cut expenses or raise new revenue or both. So we're going to see the slimming of athletic department staffs. You're going to see higher concession prices. You're going to see these mysterious charges on your ticket renewals. And a lot of longtime college sports fans don't know how this stuff works. There are schools we follow nationally that do not have a single dollar in a college tuition payment that goes directly towards sports, okay? There are other sports, there are other universities rather, where, I'm not kidding, there is a $5,000 plus athletics fee. And that is unrelated to whether your child plays sports. This is your child has chosen to go to school X. Both of my children are post-college, and thank goodness that's the case. So I'm a little less familiar with today's numbers. But if the private university is $75,000 a year, there could be a line item that says, oh yeah, and by the way, there's $5,000 athletic fee as part of your annual tuition. You might not even be a fan of that school. You may not even like sports. It is now a part of your tuition. And we are going to see both schools that have never had this athletics fee in their tuition start doing it, and other schools that have had it in there start increasing it. It's all back to the same principle. Got to cut athletic related expenses to pay for this new world. Got to increase athletic related revenues. And a huge part of that latter equation is going to be leaning on the people who love their favorite schools and their favorite teams. They are going to be asking you to reach into your pocket more often than ever, in more ways than ever, and in higher dollar amounts than ever before.
David, Tony Altomore is a social media analyst for college athletics. It focuses in on finance, and he's been talking about college athletics fees and posting about that a lot lately. And I can tell you that when I was the AD at Towson University, our student fees probably accounted for about 75% of our overall budget. So we were being completely underwritten by the students, more or less. I mean, we were not bringing in a lot of dollars at the FCS level. There was a FCS school here in the state of North Carolina in the 2021-22 academic year that was paying one head coach 5 times the amount of revenue. 5 times the amount of revenue being paid to the head coach that sport was bringing in. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. There are schools, very prominent schools, Miami, Bowling Green, Ohio University, the University of Akron, Kent State, in the Mid-American Conference, that the overwhelming majority of that level of Division I football, they are taking student fees in excess of 82% of their annual budget. It is crazy. If you ran a business like this, you would be thrown in Cuckooville. I mean, it makes no sense. And it makes you wonder then, when higher education in a lot of ways is under attack, why are the people who make up higher education, the professors and people like that, just common sense administrators, not saying, what the hell are we doing? Because it's one thing if you're Oklahoma or Texas, where you're starting to get towards a $300 million annual budget for athletics. It's a lot different if you're talking about Appalachian State, East Carolina, and Charlotte. And I know we have a lot of our subscribers and loyal listeners that are fans of those schools. I used to be the voice of the Mountaineers at Appalachian State. I'm really good friends with people at Charlotte and East Carolina. But brother, I'm telling you, I don't even know how you would go about competing and sustaining a financial model if you're these schools and trying to keep up, because the next thing that we're going to talk about in the future show is the new format for the college football playoff, because after this year, it all changes up. And if you're not in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're a second-class citizen. In the ACC and the Big 12, you are definitely not top tier. You are in the second tier, which means if you're those other three Division I FBS schools, Charlotte, East Carolina, and Appalachian State, you've got to hit the equivalent of 300 green numbers on the roulette wheel to even have a snowball's chance into making the college football playoff. And then that's hoping that another school out there doesn't go 13-0. I mean, this was a conversation at the convention I was at, that you could have a team from the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, and the American. You could have teams in all of those leagues go a perfect 12-0 in the regular season and win their conference championship game and still not make it into the college football playoff. I mean, it is a crazy time in this world that both you and I love so much, college athletics. And it's only going to get crazier. So I guess we just, stock up the fridge, pop some popcorn, and we just sit back and watch this unravel. I can tell you, for one, that after 28 years in the business, and you can see a lot of my memorabilia here in my home studio behind me, from 28 years of being in college athletics, is the first time that I've gone to that convention and I had no aspirations at all to ever work in that business again, because there is no common sense anymore in college athletics, and it goes way beyond just the paying of the athletes. David, it's good to see you. Any big plans here in the middle part of the summer before we get together for the Pineys on Wednesday, July 16th, the second annual North Carolina Sports Awards?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to interviewing those winners. We don't disclose those until the final votes are in and all the interviews have taken place. But let's just say there are some extremely prominent people on that list of interview subjects this summer. So I'm looking forward to that. The lovely and talented Maria, as I call her, my wife and I have had some wonderful trips to the North Carolina and South Carolina coasts multiple times this summer, and we have more to come. Got to visit our old friends. How many partners do we have down there? I mean, UNC Wilmington itself, Jimmy and Keaton Galeese at King Neptune Restaurant and Jimmy's Bar next door, and our friend Bob Hubbard at the original Saltworks, the great breakfast brunch place right there on Oleander Drive in Wilmington. That is our home away from home, with you and I both being based in other parts of the state. So I like to continue that regional travel trend. I'm still covering the transfer portal, college football, college baseball, college basketball at our website, ncsportsnetwork.com, where we post many of our interviews as well. So little family fun, little old-fashioned hard work as you and I continue to build the North Carolina Sports Network. But it's great to see you, my friend, and I'm glad we got to tackle this topic today. Given our backgrounds, we probably have a unique 1-2 punch when it comes to trying to understand this very difficult to understand new world of college athletics.